We're on, aren't we? Okay guys, welcome to this interview today. I'm mega excited today. Somebody who I've always held in high regard from being a kid. Somebody who played at Middlesbrough, played at Ipswich, played at Celtic, has been manager of Middlesbrough, manager of Celtic, took West Brom into the Premier League and won Scottish Writers Award for the year. Tony Mowbray.
Hi, good morning. Lovely to be here.
Tony, I want to start off this interview with telling you where I first met you, and I know that we've probably mentioned this before, but I first seen you when obviously playing at Middlesbrough, great player in the local area, and I was at junior school, as I call it, running for Newcomen School at St Dominic's, and you were there. Can you remember that particular day?
God, I can't to be honest, no. I get a lot of people come up in the street to me sometimes and say, you presented me the trophy when I was 7, and I think... And listen, a lot of people send me things to sign, really. As a football manager, they know where I am, and so Blackburn Rovers at the moment, I get a lot of mail, and there's pictures of me in 1981 or 1978 with this silly shirt on and this long hair, and I think, goodness me, where was that? And I do that a lot, to be honest. And at 57, maybe my memory is not as what it should be, but I used to, as a Middlesbrough lad, a local lad from Redcar, I used to do a lot of cup final presentations and sports day presentations as a player at Middlesbrough. And as I say, them is the sort of pictures sometimes I get put in front of me, and I think, wow, look at the shirt I had there, or look at how flares I had on.
So why did you do that? Because I remember that particular day. I'm a kid, I'm 10, 11 years old, in my last year at juniors, and you stood there for about an hour. We queued up and you were signing autographs for about an hour, and you stayed there until every kid got an autograph. Why do you do that? Because I think a lot of people in your position don't do things like that. What is it that makes you do that?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I do that today, to be honest, when I get off a coaching and away game. Sometimes you get booed and the other fans and sometimes there's people there, little kids with their dads with their books. I refuse to go walking straight off the bus and go in until everybody's something signed. Sometimes it can be negative because you sign somebody's book and somebody's abusing you verbally, but I think if kids look up to people and want their autographs and see football as this dream for them, then we should. Because I was you. I went to the Lakes School. David Mills and Alan Foggen once came and presented a trophy to me, and I was the same as wow. And you leave them impressions are left with you, I would suggest, and that stuck with me. I believe we're a product of where we're from, really, and I was from a pretty stable family. Lived on the Lakes Estate. I lived in Essex Close, and my dad was a scaffolder, British Steel, and I was just given the right values, the right human qualities. I think a close-knit family. Dad would go to work and come in at 5 o'clock, have his tea, go to the Lake Social Club, come back at 10 o'clock at night. We'd watch Match of the Day, and it was. I feel as if you're given human qualities, human values, and I think I've always done that. I see people, and if they are there and they want to wait and get autographs, I feel as if it's my duty to do that, and I enjoy mixing with people. My main quality in life, I feel, a lot of people ask me about things like this. I think my main quality in life is just my human qualities that I've been given by my parents and where I grew up. I'm not an overly clever person. I'm not a political animal. I think I've got good human values who care about people and spend time with people, which is why hopefully in my football management career I've had some longevity, because I hope the players feel I'm there for them, to make them better, to make them achieve what they want to achieve in life.
Yeah, I think that, it's quite funny actually, because one of the things that I do is the business side of things. You potentially might have started off my business career at 10, 11-year-old, because I got your autograph and my dad went and photocopied it about 25 times. And I remember going into the school at Newcomen and I was exchanging autographs for pens, pencils, pencil cases, apples, like food. And I think I probably got the first lesson there of, hey, if I had more stuff like this that I could exchange. So I don't know, maybe that triggered the entrepreneurial side of me. You mentioned there, Tony, about the upbringing around what you had. Obviously, after that, I didn't know that I'd become best friends with your brother Darren. I want to share something with you, which you probably won't know, but this tells me a lot about what Margaret and Clive are like, your mum and dad. Was one particular day, me and Darren had gone out, 18-year-old, probably in this place where we're at now, having a drink. And we'd come home, it was about 2 o'clock in the morning, and Darren goes, oh no, my lights are on. And I'm like, yeah, what's wrong with that? And I was sleeping at the house at Hambleton Avenue. And he said, something's up, my dad must be up. And I was like thinking, well, why? He's just probably left the lights on. He was like, no, there's something definitely up. And we comes to the door, and Clive answers the door, and he goes, right, you two sit down there now straight away. And he just had that, authority figure, didn't he? Me and Darren sat there, and we were like, Darren was going, what have you done? I was going, nothing, I haven't done anything. And he went, right, explain this to me. And earlier on that day, you obviously know Conrad and Glenn and that as well, Darren's friends. And we'd been to Pasito's, and we had these plastic spoons, and Conrad had been burning the spoon, and he coloured it in like it was like a little nut on the spoon, and he was pretending to flick it at people all day. Anyway, we'd left that in the house, didn't think anything of it, been messing about, and Margaret had found this spoon and thought it was something to do with drugs. And I remember your dad like literally just going, explain this to me now. And me and Darren started laughing because we couldn't help it, because we'd just been literally just childish as kids. But do you think that had a big impact on who you are? Because Clive was, if he spoke, we were listening.
You know what, you're just telling that story, it almost makes me a bit emotional really, because that was what my dad was. He taught values. I think I never really dared dig too deep into my dad's life and his background. I know he had a nickname called Killer, and I never really asked why. But he would do things like that to me, really. Things like, and I get emotional because I try and teach my children it now. I've got 3 young boys, and things like, never lay your hands on your mum or any female, any woman. He taught me that early in life, and I say that to my kids who think sometimes they can not be physical, but push their mum and verbally abuse her, tell her to shut up and stuff. And my dad was so hard line on things like that: respect for your elders, respect for the fairer sex, should we say? And I find myself doing that to my kids now about don't talk to your mum like that. You dare put your hand on your mother. It was something that, I don't know, it didn't feel like a lesson at the time, but it was just inbred in you, as if you had to do it. And so, that story makes me quite emotional to think that's because that's how my dad lived his life. But I don't know the early part of his life, why he became so adamant of what was right and what was wrong. But I know those things are strong, inbred in me. I'm fortunate enough to be a football coach with 50 footballers to look after, and I find myself going around preaching a little bit to them about life and habits and being respectful, don't be late, all of the things you would expect, all about values really. And I think sometimes they find them funny, but I think it sticks. I think they know that whilst the gaffer's been quite humorous, there's an underlying message there. Lots of stuff like that my dad was like, without getting his belt off and being aggressive, we just knew really, and you said there in his voice, you knew not to mess with my dad really. And I think those human qualities, those human values is how I live my life today, and I think it's helped me through life, and I'm trying to do it with my own kids, and I'm assuming that's how life works. It becomes a generational thing really.
Yeah, and I think like one thing I picked up from Clive was, I remember the first time going into the house with Darren, and I found it weird because your dad used to call Margaret Mam, didn't he? He used to address her as Mam, and he used to say, Mam, Darren wants this. And I remember thinking, Mam, like, where's Mum? And
Yeah.
It was just that was the first time I've ever heard somebody address their partner and call her Mum all the time, and I don't know if that was maybe his...
Yeah. Listen, it was a really warm, loving family, and yet when I do think back, my dad was just a normal working class man who literally came in at 5 o'clock, got washed and went to the pub, really. Had his dinner, went to the pub, and then expected, if it was a Saturday, he'd be home for Match of the Day, and we knew we'd always watch Match of the Day together, but we'd have like roast beef sandwiches. It was like, everything was routine. The greatest days in my young life were the FA Cup final days, and he'd have all his mates. He'd have 20 blokes around, sitting in our front room with the curtains shut, all drinking cans of beer, watching the FA Cup final, and I'd be sitting there. It was like, they're the greatest memories of my life, really. So when I get involved in the FA Cup as a football manager, and people say, are you playing a weekend team today? The FA Cup's the biggest tournament ever in my mind, because it was growing up, it was affected, and yet you can see what happens in modern day football. It's almost like the third competition now, after the winning the Premier League and the Champions League. You know, the FA Cup, the top teams now do pick under strength teams, etc. But all just memories, history, all things that moulded you as a person, really. And me as a football coach, the FA Cup's always the most important thing. I got to the FA Cup semi-final with West Brom at Wembley, a Wembley semi-final, got beat off Harry Redknapp's Portsmouth. But that would have been the biggest day of my life if we'd have got to the cup final.
Yeah. Another thing, when growing up and being around the house was, and I said this the other day here in the email, was this contraption that your dad made. Yeah. And for anybody who's listening to this was... I don't know if he made it himself or what, but it looked like a lamppost, and it was bent over, and it had a rope going through it, which had a ball attached to a rope. And you used to jump up and practice your headers. And I remember Darren used to be able to have it at the highest possible height and be able to header that. Was that something did you buy that, or is that something he made himself?
Dad made that.
He made that, did he?
He was a scaffolder, and that was a scaffolding tube, and he'd obviously, he used to take me to the British Steel, and I mean, them memories I've still got of like that molten steel like popping out of these big I don't know what it's called, somebody would know what it was called, the smelter or whatever it was. And anyway, there was a lot of heat and stuff, so somebody had bent, whether my dad did it personally, he'd bent a scaffolding tube around, basically. I'm sure it was a straight scaffolding tube that had been bent. You could see where it was actually scarred on as it was being bent, and so it'd been burned and bent round, then obviously cooled. It had clamps put to the washing line, the pole that keeps the washing line on, two big scaffolding clamps, and it just been attached. And then as you say, we had a ball, we had a rope attached to it, and it was pulled, and so you could lift and tie the rope up so you get the ball at different heights. From the age of, I don't know, maybe 10, I used it every day of my life. Very topical, really, because there's a lot of stuff going on about dementia and things at the moment, about heading footballs, and yet I headed footballs from the age of 7 or 8, but definitely around the age of 10, 12, when I actually moved to Hambleton Avenue from Essex Close. I think I was 10, 11, 12, I'm not sure, but so from that time on, I was heading balls every day of my life. It became a major part of my game, but it was great because you could adjust the height, and basically you were challenging yourself, and every day or every week you would move it up a little bit. And did it help me in my football career? I'm sure it did. I learned how to head a football properly. I got my timing, I got spring, because I would take it just out the height, and within the week I could head it full on my forehead by practicing my leap and getting my stride patterns right into jumping. I think it was very important. And my dad, I don't remember the day it arrived, but I remember my dad always having scaffolding equipment, one of these scaffolders belts with all these things hanging down. Goodness me, I remember them days. Everything was cash. I used to come home with a brown envelope and just give it to my mum. Would take like 40 quid out and give the rest to her. I'm assuming, the stories that she would get the shopping and stuff like that and feed the house. But making me feel as if I'm 100-year-old here rather than what I am. But then were the days really where it was working men's club down the local with all the lads. I seemed to know all of my dad's mates, and I used to just play in the street. When I was in the Lakes Estate, there was garages, like communal garages, which were like maybe 30 yards apart, and it was just an ideal small-sided game, and I spent my life kicking a football. I say to my kids who are always on their PS5s now, or PS4s, and get in the garden, play with the ball. But I didn't need anybody to play with. I had garages where I could whack it and use targets and whack it off the garage behind me and turn, and it was living in such a confined environment, I'm sure helped me, like a street footballer really, helped me with the ability to play, because I didn't need other people to play with. I had walls and garages to kick balls off.
No, I think it's amazing. And one question I want to ask you, Tony, because this is one of the main things I wanted to do this, is that there'll be a lot of kids watching this and a lot of parents showing their kids that. I think most kids' dream is to be a footballer. It's definitely one of the biggest dreams. Yeah. How have you been able to play at such a high level and manage at a high level? The dream what most kids have. What does it take to be able to get to that level?
I have, what you've just asked me, I had a conversation with one of my young centre-halves this week really about... because I played a midfield player. We played at Stoke this weekend. I played a midfield player at centre-half because I've got 3 injuries to 3 centre-halves. I had no defenders left, and I played a midfield player. And one of the young guys came and knocked on my door. Probably sent him by his agent or his dad and said, go see the manager, see why he's not playing you, give you a chance. It was... them sort of decisions are... about life issues really. So this young guy, I won't name the defender who came in to ask me why. I talk about habits, about the human qualities required to compete at the level. So we're not the top level, we're not the Premier League, but we're trying to get to the Premier League. What it takes, I was talking to him about what's in your stomach really. It's not about how many times you've kicked the ball or headed the ball. It's about life, it's about where you grew up from, it's about being a winner, it's about what drives you internally, these internal mechanisms that make you want to win, make you want to be better than your best mate who's in the dressing room with you but wants to compete with you to get in the team before you. Yeah. You don't have to dislike him, you don't have to see him as an enemy, but you have to get in front of him, you have to be a winner. It's an internal mechanism really, and I was driven... because I knew I wasn't the best player at Middlesbrough. We had Stephen Bell and Stuart McPhee and great. Darren Wood was in front of me as a centre half when I was a young kid who'd left school and was an apprentice, and all these amazing players that were miles better than me. And yet what drove me, where I came from drove me, this mechanism inside, and I don't know what it was, because I wasn't, as I said to you, I wasn't the best footballer, but I was driven to win, to come out on top, to win every five-a-side, to win every tackle, to be the guy who, if I got knocked down, I got back up. And this is what I was saying to my young centre-half this week. It's a street fighter instinct inside you. And I feel as if I'm a nice guy. I feel as if I give everybody respect. I give everybody time. But you push me in a corner and you don't give me a way out, I'm coming out scrapping and punching and fighting and kicking. And that's how I lived my life coming out. I don't want to paint a picture of... because I had everything I ever wanted, and I look back, we probably didn't have that much money, but I never wanted for anything in life, and yet I feel as if, whilst I feel as if I'm respectful to everybody and have a lot of integrity, I feel if you treat me badly, do wrong by me, I can scratch and fight and punch. And I was trying to get across to this young kid, here you are, I need to see more of it. Football has almost become like an academy-based, let's be good at passing out from the back, let's be good with your feet. What about when it's war and it's our team, we have to win, and he's knocking you about on the pitch and the centre forward's messing you around? Where's the internal mechanism that means you are going to win and you're going to show him? And that's what I try to drive this young player, and that's the story you asked. What was I all about? I was driven really. And you're just a product of where you're from, I think. And
I think it's funny you say that, because and Darren won't mind me saying this, because Darren obviously loves you a bit. I remember Darren getting released from Middlesbrough, and I went, I think it was with Glenn, it was either Glenn or Conrad, and we went with your dad when Darren had trials at Scarborough. And I remember Darren going on and scoring in his trials, and he just absolutely dominated, and he was an amazing player. And I remember your dad saying bloody frustrates me, this lad. And he said that he was actually more naturally talented than what you were,
sure.
but you just wanted it more. He just said our Tony's just completely committed to what he wants. And
I remember having a chat with Bobby Murdoch, to be honest, who was my youth team coach. I left school, I became an apprentice. And I knew the players were better. You know, I was really frustrated. They were trying to turn me. I'd always been a midfield player and always been the best player playing. So you mentioned Newcomen. Ray Grant, the scout who found me at 80-odd-year-old at the time, we beat Newcomen 3-0 at Lakes Estate. And obviously a different era for yourself, but it's Newcomen was the school. I scored a hat-trick second half. My mum, not my dad, gave me a rollicking at half-time for come on, get stuck in. My mum was always one who criticised me if I wasn't doing well. I scored a hat-trick second half, and that was where I got my trial to go to Boro. And I've lost track of where I was going on that story with you, but it's
just more that focus of you of how much you wanted it. That's what Clive said. That you just really wanted it. It was more, and I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you didn't ever seem to sort of drink or go out and party. It was just pure dedication to the sport. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, I think so. I think early in your life, I've got a 16-year-old boy. Early in your life, I think you explore. I would have explored. I did go on that first trip with that group of apprentices after I left school, and we went to Magaluf, as lads do at 18, 19, and I tried alcohol, and I just couldn't understand why people liked it. It was bitter, it was nasty, I would want to be one of the lads, and so I'd have my drink, and when no one was looking, I'd just leave it on the bar, and I'd be part of what was going on, and I'd leave it, and I wouldn't drink it. I'd have one sip as if I've got one. The next round, I'll have a whatever it was, bottle of Sol with one of them limes in the top at the time. Never drink them. I'd never put a pint of lager or beer in my hand in my whole life because it was bitter and nasty. If it was, just the taste of one of them bottles, what that stuff was like. So I never got used to the taste. People tell me that you have to get past them first few pints, and it might be a bit bitter, but you start to enjoy it. I never got past that. I was always driven's a good word for me. I was always driven. I didn't have a girlfriend until I was 22, a proper girlfriend, a relationship, because I didn't have time. I was practicing, and I was probably in the back garden hitting that contraption, kicking a ball against the garage, doing extra after training, because I knew I wasn't as good as some of these players, and I was football had what I'd been at my first ever game to go. My dad took me out to school. There was a knock on the door in the classroom. My dad arrived. I think, what is going on? He took me out of my lesson to go and watch George Best at Ayresome Park because it was the coal strike and it was an afternoon. It was a 2 or 3 o'clock kickoff because there was no floodlights allowed because of the coal strike and there was no electricity. So they played it during the daylight. So he took me out to school to watch George Best. I'd sat and watched this hazy coloured World Cup in 1970 and these Brazilians, and it just inspired me really. I was desperate to be a footballer, and I knew I had to keep pushing. And then when I realised when I got to Boro I wasn't the best player, because I was the best player at Lake School, and I might have been the best player in the area, and I might have been captain of Langbar and captain of Cleveland. All of a sudden you get to a professional club, and all the kids are as good as you, if not better. And so they were better. I had to work harder, and that's what I did. And I did that all my life, and I still try to do that today. I'm still the first person who gets into work every morning. I try to be the last one to leave, not because of the time issue, because I've got a family, and if I'm coming home, I'll come home and see my kids and my wife. But I try and lead by example. I show them this is... I have a little thing at the moment at... everybody in my club seems to have a beard. Now, I don't know whether that's just a nature thing, and I'm asking the footballers whether is it lazy or is it trendy? So what do you think in the morning? Because I shave every day of my life. Why? I think Rioch probably pushed that on me, and not my dad, probably Rioch, because my dad had a little goatee, as you maybe remember, and it's always stuck with me. And I think I get up and I brush my teeth, I go to the toilet and I shave, and I see all of my players unshaven, bit scruffy, not manicured beards, and I just think, how do you live your life? What do you do? Where's your discipline? Where's the discipline in your life to get up and have some structure? because that's what I think I do, and it helps me prepare the day. Really, I feel ready. I've done what I do. I get my kit on, and there's only the chef in the building who's starting to prepare breakfast, and then I have a chat with him. And as my staff come in, I feel as if the gaffer's ear is in control. He's ready. And that's how I try and live my life, really. And then I let people do their jobs. I'm not a megalomaniac. I don't want to do everybody's job. I'm at an age now where I don't want to do the daily coaching, what I've done for 20 years. I'll say, right, we're going to use 20 players. Let's work on crossing and finishing. Let's work on defending. Let the coaches do the sessions. Let them, and then I will stop the session if I want to stop it and say you have to do it. But I've gone through it. I delegate basically at the moment. But at the end of the day, everybody knows I'm the guy stood on the touchline who takes the flak and takes the pressure if it doesn't go well. And, but I'm fine with that because I live a life now where I think as long as I do everything I can to the best I can, and I'm not cutting corners, I'm not cheating on myself, because all you do is cheat on yourself, then I'm happy. I can't guarantee we're going to win every football match. You know, it's 11 guys against 11 guys, and as long as I've done the work, done the preparation, not cut corners on the hours, we go to battle every game and we try and win. Yeah,
and that's something what my dad brought me up on. As long as you can honestly say you've tried your best, no one can ask any more of you. But you need to know you've done that. Tony, I'd like to know, throughout your career, who's the best player and the best manager you've ever been under? The best manager you've worked under and best player you've ever played with or against?
Well, my career goes back a long way. I think it was 81, 82 I made my debut, I'm not sure. I have played against Kenny Dalglish, who was like, so here I was, this young guy who wanted to make an impact, who worked his socks off to become a footballer, right? And I played against Dalglish. Rush was on the pitch that day as well, so you'd have to say what a career. But for sheer talent, I was wanting to make an impact and not kick them, but show them I was there. Because I played in an era, the early 80s, when you could tackle, you could come right through the back of people and take man and ball and everything and play on. You look at it now, any contact and you're going in the book. It's but I would have played in an era where you could tackle, and yet Kenny Dalglish, you couldn't tackle him because he would come off on the angle, and if you went tight to him, Ian Rush would just run in the space you left and they would slide him in, and so you were trying to do both. You couldn't tackle Kenny Dalglish. He was so clever with his movement. If you got tight, he'd nick it off one touch. If he didn't come tight because you were trying to cover the space, he'd get turned with his touch. Some players are just cleverer than you, and you can feel it on the pitch. You can feel the class and the quality of a player who knows what he's doing, who's experienced. You'd have to say people like Rush, just too fast for me. Their brains, they're playing with great players, and when you've got great player passing to great player, that's why football is. And I say to my players today, if we are fortunate enough to get to the Premier League, everybody has to raise their game because it's a different level. Again, you are playing against super athletes, super speed, but brilliant brains, recognition of space, brilliant first touches. Everything has to improve and get better. So player-wise, I made my debut against Kevin Keegan, who historically was an amazing football captain of England for so many years, and European Footballer of the Year. Went to Hamburg and won that. And so Keegan, Dalglish. In my early days, them sort of players were the great players I played against. Peter Beardsley and Ian Rush as well. You've got to throw them all in there, I think.
Manager,
I have to say Rioch, I think. I had Malcolm Allison. Again, it's different generational thing. Malcolm Allison at Crystal Palace or Manchester City, people would think you're mad if you didn't say Malcolm Allison was the greatest manager you worked with. And yet, I had him at Middlesbrough with players who probably weren't as good as Colin Bell and Mike Summerby and all these great players he had at Man City. He's one of his coaching sessions was to play table tennis around a room, and the rest of the four players that were playing table tennis played table tennis, and the rest of the squad sat around the room on a chair, and the session was the ball wasn't allowed to hit the floor, so it was about your reaction. So you'd be sitting in a chair and somebody overhit the shot, you'd have to dive off your chair and catch the ball before it hit the floor. And it was all about your body movement, your head movement. He had a ballerina working with me as a movement coach. He recognised that as a big lad I wasn't moving my body in fast enough.
Yeah.
So I was walking through doors for a couple of years with my head first like that.
Yeah.
Because the ballerina's telling me you've got to move your head before it moves your shoulders, which moves your legs. God, so was Malcolm Allison in front of his time? Probably. But the person who left the biggest influence on me was probably Rio, because it was the first time, it was like switching a light on. I'd been this guy who'd been working like a maniac to become a footballer, because I wasn't the most talented. I worked and worked and worked and practiced and practiced and practiced. And football was really hard my early years at Middlesbrough. We seemed to be scrapping to stay away from the bottom six. And when we went 1-0 down, you knew most you were going to get as a draw. You couldn't score 2 goals. The team wasn't good enough. And it was really, really hard. And then Riot came along. And as I say, it was like flicking on a switch. He said, stop. You've got the ball. Give him an angle there. If you pass him it, what's going to happen? Oh, he's going to close you down. But if he closes him down, he doesn't turn and pass forward. He gives it back to you, and you play it behind him and for the striker to run. And so what he did, he was like painted pictures of the pitch and how your movement could affect the opposition's positional play.
Yeah.
And it was like a bit like chess, really. You never played chess. All of a sudden, you know that the bishop goes on the diagonal and the rook goes up and down. It was like on a grass pitch. If you give him the ball and he closes him down, you get it back and you put in the space where that guy's just come from to close him down, and you have to move into that space. And if you move into that space and he pushes on, you play over the top and you run. And it was like so easy. And Middlesbrough all of a sudden came from this team that was struggling every day. It was a fight. Every game was a war, to a team that was just better than everybody else, because Rio had showed us how to play football.
Yeah.
And so he's left the biggest impression on me. And I get to where I am today in football. Football is like science, really. We've got GPSs. Every single training session, every match is how intensity, extensity, how far distance, how much time you spend walking, how much time you spend sprinting. And then on top of that, it's all the tactical stuff. Are you playing 4-3-3? How many men are you attacking with? How many men do you defend with? How high do your fullbacks play? Are you playing, so Jose Mourinho, are you playing counter-attack? Are you not going to press the ball at all? Or are you going to press it with everybody all the time? You're going to play a high line on the half. So it's really tactical. And so the secret is to get the team to buy into what you believe is how you're going to play. And once they go, wow, this is amazing, Gaffer, we're winning football matches by doing this. So after the first 10, 12 games of the season, we were top goal scorers in the league. We were winning 5-0, 4-0, 4-0, 3-0. And they're all going, wow, this is unbelievable. And all we really did was push the team 20 yards further forward, get the strikers working so much harder. We were winning the ball in and around the opposition box, and from there we were one pass and it was in their net, as opposed to thinking that we could build from the back, have 25 passes and score a great goal.
Yeah.
It was about moving the team higher up the pitch and pressing. And now they drive it themselves. It's like I show them how to do it. We repeat, I show them the videos, I show them the good practice, and now they repeat themselves and they drive themselves on the pitch to play how we play. So taking them along on the journey. And Riok was the first manager who showed me, you need a pattern of play, you need a way of showing the players that works, then it has to work, and then they believe and they follow.
Yeah. And you were his captain, right? Because I remember there was what was that famous saying that he said about you?
Something about flying to the moon, eh? They created a fanzine, didn't they? Because still going today, could fly me to the moon. And if he was on a rocket ship to the moon, the one person, I think I just scored a diving header. I think it was around the time we had 2 replays against the league champions Everton with all them great players: Kevin Sheedy, Peter Reid, Andy Gray, and Graham Sharp and Adrian Heath. I scored an equaliser, a diving header in a game at Ayresome Park, and I think it was after that game we took the league champions to 2 replays in an FA Cup, and it was just a quote that came out, and it was picked upon at a time where fanzines were becoming popular. But it sticks, and it still sticks, and every now and then I get a copy to sign and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But,
and he said, what if he was going to the moon, he'd take his captain, Tony Mowbray.
That was it. But he's still a great man. He lives down in Exeter now, retired. I try and invite him to some games if I can now and then. But he's living a quiet life, and but he was a great football manager, and even better, a great man really. I think his father was a sergeant major in the army, and this is where his discipline came from.
Right.
And interesting.
Tony, tell me about your passion for the Boro when you took that job, because funnily enough, I was speaking to my coach yesterday, who's been training me for the triathlons and the one that I've recently done. He's from Stockton area, and he said to me yesterday, I told him that I was interviewing you because he's a Boro fan, and he said, you know me, he's just got his commission in the army, so he's gone all the way through the ranks. He's the army's triathlete, the army's triathlon coach. And he said, you know me, he said, I don't put anyone on a pedestal. He said, but if there's one man I do put on a pedestal, it's Tony Mowbray. Just the way that he conducts himself, the way that he is. You're very much loved in this area. Tell us about when you took the role as the Boro manager.
It was offered to me. I'd been to Celtic, hadn't I? I'd followed Gordon Strachan into Celtic, and strangely enough, I followed Gordon Strachan into Middlesbrough as well, because Gordon left Celtic to come to Middlesbrough, and Celtic didn't really work for me. I was there just under a year. I don't know whether you've done much time in Scotland or worked in Scotland. I played in Scotland. I married a Scottish girl. It's an Irish Scottish girl. I love Glasgow, I love Edinburgh, and yet the politics around the football in the west of Scotland is a different level. Yeah. And I've said to you, I'm not a politician. I don't profess to being overly clever or manipulative. I don't really play the game. I open my human qualities out, and I say to my players sometimes, you have to expose your soul. I said, listen, This is what life is. This is football. Expose your soul. Let people see who you are. Why are you guarded? Anyway, that approach doesn't necessarily work in Scotland, in the west of Scotland. Just the political nature of the media industry, for a start, the competitive nature of the media in Scotland, and there's a good guy and a bad guy. There has to be a winner and a loser. Yeah. Rangers were still pretty strong when I was manager of Celtic, and before they got put down 3 or 4 leagues for irregularities, financial stuff. But and to come second in Scotland, you're going to lose your job. You can't come second in Scotland. And anyway, on the back of that trauma, really, from my career, which had been going in one direction, and from Hibs, where I had an amazing start with some amazing players and a great run of 2 or 3 years, went to West Brom, where I had a playoff final, an FA Cup semi-final, then got promoted, won the league, got to the Premier League. From upward spiral to, the first real knock in my life, less than a year in a job, lost my job, couldn't turn it around, was getting lambasted in the papers every day, didn't know what you're doing, terrible this, that's wrong, why are you doing this? And Middlesbrough came calling, really. Gordon had not hit it off at Middlesbrough after leaving Celtic, and it was a really interesting time. It was, I feel as if initially it was an emotional decision. I think if I'd have sat back and thought, Gordon Strachan spent a fair few quid, brought a lot of players. I'd sold him, Scott MacDonald and Chris Boyd had come from Rangers, and a few, 3 or 4 Scottish players had come. They were languishing, they found it really difficult, the Championship, and maybe I should have given it more thought. That Steve cyclically would spend a lot of money, and as Boro had some great teams in the years previous and got to the European Cup final, etc. It's when he spends it and it doesn't go well, there'll be a period where he doesn't spend and he lets things settle, and I feel as if that's what happened to me, really. Gordon had spent some money, the team didn't gel, and I came in on the emotional whim of, this is my club, I've been going since the age of 6 with my dad. I can't say no to Middlesbrough. Yeah. And yet if I was that political animal, if I had given it more thought, if I wasn't emotionally driven, I'd have probably seen the dangers of that job. And but I came and did the best I could for 3 years, and we had some amazing times, to be honest. 2 of those years we were at the top of the table in January. Yeah. I think people react to how I manage them. You know, I don't even see it as managing. I see it as creating a human connection with people where they know I'm not playing games. They know I care about their lives. I care about their careers. I care about the club. I care about the people who supported the team. And as we went along, I'm getting to that stage with Blackburn. In February, I'll have been at Blackburn 4 years. People, when you raise the expectation, you become a victim of your own success
Yeah.
a little bit. And I sort of went through that cycle where we were top of the table 2 years on the bounce from a team that had been second bottom. When I came with players who were finding the championship really difficult, and then people get a bit sick of the same rhetoric. We'll keep fighting, we're doing well, okay, we lost on Saturday, but the team created so many chances and had more possession, trying to find the positives to keep your players going and believing, and yet the fans in the world we live in, on social media, on radio call-ins, on letters in newspapers, you can feel it becomes there's an unrest. They expect more. Is the reality for Middlesbrough with the lack of funding? You know, I'm trying to think what I spent. We sold Joe Bennett for $3.5 million and brought in George Friend for $100,000 from Doncaster. The money I spent, Djukovic came in for about $900,000. Adoma came in on the back of them sales, really. But I didn't feel as if we invested through that period. But I never look back and think, oh, it was not fair. When my eyes wide open, I suppose, with my emotions rather than my brain, I took on the challenge.
Is that because you love the area that much and the club? Is it because of where you started off yourself?
I think it's because it's my club. You know, my first memories of Jack Charlton getting the warm-up tops off the lads off Fogan and Mills and Souness and Armstrong, Bohm, Madron, Spraggan, Craggs. That was my team. I still can sit here and picture it today. I know we've lost Jack only this year, but I still see that picture of him shaking his players' hands, taking their tracksuit top off them, carrying them off the pitch. His team, he cared about them. I think he'd probably been influenced by Revy, who used to ask him massage his own players and stuff. A generational thing moving on, how much the coaches helped and worked their players, and it sort of, I think it's filtered through really. And so my impressions of Charlton and Middlesbrough was my team. I used to go and stand on the old gate with my dad, and then I don't know why, but we ended up getting a seat in the main stand. I don't know whether he got more money, he got a better job, I'm not sure, but we ended up going from the old gate to the sitting in the stand. And but Boro was always my team, and when it came along, it was really difficult to turn it down. I can
imagine that.
Yeah, I moved back to the area. I stayed at Rockcliffe for a little bit. Then I found a house. I live in Nunthorpe currently, and my kids go to school in the area. This is where I'm from. All my friends are here. I don't have lots of friends in life, but the friends I've got who I grew up with, who I would have gone to Macmillan's with, and to this place. And my uncle Norman, of course, was Norman the Doorman in the top deck for years and years and years.
Yeah, great guy.
So, just coming back and living in the area, and you know, I'd drive my own kids down Essex Close before it got knocked down, and just to show them the garages they used to kick the ball against. And if I come to Redcar to see my mum, I'd drive down Westdyke Road and I'd take them past Lakes School, and I show them all Pasitos, we'll go and get an ice cream, and I'm trying to ingrain them in the life I grew up on. Because I think it's good. I look back on the life I've had, and it's not so bad. This is not such a bad area to live in. The people are so much warmer and accommodating, and the further south you get, it's just a busy world, like bees and ants going through their hives and stuff, and people don't stop and give people the time of day. And I don't say I enjoy it, it's just part of my life. I go to the petrol station, I go into Middlesbrough to go to the bank. People recognise me, people stop in the street. Now then, Morgan, how's things, big man, all right? They want to shake your hand. Sometimes they can't believe it's you, and they stop and chat. And I'm sure they walk away and think, Jesus, what have I just done? Did I do that? But I don't mind. I try and give people my time. I don't think I've ever been unsociable to somebody because I haven't got time. And people of a generation, people of an era who recognise the face still, even though it's got a few more lines on it and it's getting a bit older every year, they still recognise the face, and it's probably because it reminds them of the youth and the days they would go and watch the Buddha.
Yeah. Tony, this is probably a difficult question because I know you're a guy that's very committed to what you're doing, and you're very committed to the club where you're at. Do you think if things change, you'd ever come back to the Borough? Do you think that's a possibility?
I'm not sure what role. I don't see me coming back as football manager. I don't think. I think I've had my shot at it. It's always in my heart. I don't know where football's going really. I'd like my family to grow up here. I'd like my kids. I don't know what opportunities they've got in the northeast now. It's obviously with the industries. I'm assuming that one industry dies, another industry grows in behind it and stuff. And so I'm not sure which angle you might be able to tell me. Whether is it becoming? My kids are all really good on computers, as every kid is, I think. You know, are there going to be occupational opportunities in the northeast of England? Because ultimately you get to a stage in your life where your children become more important.
Yeah.
One's supposed to be doing GCSEs this year if they ever get done. But so my thoughts, yes, my football career, my team, my commitment to that, my family really is very, very right up there in my priorities of what's next for us. We live in the northeast currently. I don't know what capacity. I will always be there for Middlesbrough Football Club if they need me to do anything for them or to help. But Steve Gibson's a great man and he's more than capable of making his own decisions on what he thinks is best for the football club at any given time. And again, because of my nature, I would never presume or expect anything.
Yeah.
I just want the team to do well and the club to do well, and they're doing well at the moment. Neil Warnock's obviously there, and they're having a strong season, and I hope that continues for them.
Tony, two last questions. One, in your role, it's very unforgiving, isn't it, as a football manager? It's people expect results nowadays that you don't have that time, do you? It's people expect results. I don't think just in football, I think in life in general, people have become impatient in terms of they expect to do something and get a result. How do you deal with that pressure of being at top clubs and having to perform constantly? How do you deal with that?
I think different people will deal with it different ways. My way is to focus on what I know I can control, deal with people, make people the core of the business really, try and get excellence, try and have people with growth mindsets, people who want to develop, people who want to get better every day of their lives. That's footballers, that's coaches, that's kit men, that's dinner ladies, that's my secretary. I want people to improve and make the building better and the football team better. Ultimately, we all get judged on the result at the end of the day. We played last Saturday against Stoke and had 69% possession and double the shots they had, and they managed to lose 1-0. I can't control the end result other than I can control all of the bits going into preparing for a game, the environment that I create. I live in that world really. I protect myself from the outside world. I protect myself from social media, from reading newspapers, from reading anything that might sway me. And people, my close associates, know that I don't need the information. You know that so-and-so has been saying this about the team or this about you. Nobody tells me. I don't know. I'm not interested. I focus only on what I can control. I keep my players and my staff as close as I can to the point of they know that I've got their back really. I'm there for them and hopefully that is reciprocated and it will create an environment where we work hard, we try and search for excellence. And because I can't dictate what the opposition do on any given day, whether they're attack minded, defensive minded. We just have to prepare our team and try and improve myself every day. I think things like listening to podcasts, things like growth mindsets, things like high performance, excellent teams are what I search for, look for the fine detail that will make a difference. And if I listen to a 2-hour podcast and there is one sentence that I think, you know what, that is amazing, I'm going to use that. That's how I see me trying to improve and never stop improving. I say to my footballers, even when you're 35, 36, Stuart Downing, as an example, Stuart Downing, 36 and a half, he's probably still one of our best players. I bring him on for the last 20 minutes of games if we need to control the game to see it out, or we're chasing a goal, he'll play the forward passes. And I say to my young players, just watch Stewie. He can't train every day, his knee's a bit degenerative now, but just his ability on the ball, his forward passing, his eyes are always looking forward, all the things you ask players to do. Your first touch, see the forward passes, be brave, wrap it through that tight gap, play it over the top. Stewie does all of that naturally, and he's an example to our young players.
Yeah, and I think something you've said there, which I talk about with a model, is people developing themselves, and there's no coincidence that the success that you've had, and you're constantly developing your mind and the people you put yourself around. Tony, I've absolutely loved that. I want to finish off with one thing. If there's anybody watching this now, especially young kids, wrap up what they need to do. If they're sat watching you now and they know that they want to become professional footballers, they want to follow in your footsteps, what advice would you give them?
Well, I think it's a mindset. You have to have a strong mindset. You have to be a determined mindset. I think I'm going by my own story really, because I wasn't the most talented, and there might be some kids out there who are just supremely talented and their talent might take them where they want to be. But the vast majority of people who are not the 1% elite, you have a mindset and a belief and a strength and a determination. It comes from within. It's like a fire in your belly that sometimes simmers and sometimes burns bright. Believe in yourself. We all have self-talk. I tell my players this today. You go to bed at night, you turn the light off, there's just you. You might be with your wife or your partner, or for young kids, you're in your bedroom. You've turned your PS4 off, and just you and your thoughts. Keep driving yourself, keep encouraging yourself. Nobody's better at encouraging your own inert motivation and inspiration than yourself and your self-talk, really. And keep believing that you can get there, and that's how I managed to do it. By self-talk's always been in my life. When I turn the light off, then minutes before you sleep, just the thoughts that you have to get there, to achieve, to be a winner, to be a good person, to have human qualities and values, integrity, honesty, humility being the biggest word in my life around football. Be brilliant at what you do, but you don't have to tell the world. Let other people talk about it, and have all them qualities, and you will get there. Whatever's destined for you, have a dream and try and live it.
Tony Blackburn, are very fortunate to have you. You're an absolute legend in the Teesside area. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.